Hi, I'm Chris McBrien, a Gen Xer, and the pop culture from my generation is awesome.
And I'm Yancy Eaton, a millennial, and the pop culture from my generation is dope.
Episode 66, the best movie sequels. Chris McBrien here, along with Yancy Eaton. It's Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. And Yancy Eaton, my man, we had to take last week off because you were gone. What happened? Where'd you go? Tell us.
So I spent the 3-4 days in California with our buddy Sammy Reed, who's been on the podcast a couple times, one of the only multi-time guests we've had on the show. It was actually the first time Sammy and I have hung out in the flesh, and I stayed in like a gigantic beach house with, all of Sammy's best friends, people he's known for 15, 20 years, and I was like that weird, the weird guy that everybody knew kind of from Twitter, but it was really, really crazy. A bunch of us went skydiving and went paintballing, and I tried In-N-Out for the first time. It was the first time I saw mountains, first time I ever had sake at a sushi place. Like, it was just a weekend of firsts, and just hanging out with Sammy and just kind of sending him off as he was preparing. This was his bachelor party weekend, and he gets married pretty soon. But it was a really wild weekend. It was something that I never thought I would do. Just going to hang out with a bunch of loose acquaintances from the internet, and yeah, it was a really, really good time. Can't believe I actually did it.
Man, that's awesome. And that's really where we're at, isn't it? Like, we have lots of friends that we've never actually physically met. You and I have never been in the same room together. We've never physically met.
Nope. Unfortunately not. That's something you and I, obviously, we talk about a lot. Hoping to plan it out there. My wife, she has very little interest in going to Canada, so that's kind of holding us back a little bit. But for sure, as soon as it works out as far as scheduling and logistics goes, Chris and I will be hanging out in downtown Toronto, catch some games. I know, Chris, you've been down here in Florida a couple times. You've been on like Sanibel and stuff. So obviously, the next time you're in Florida, you and I will meet up. But I've been to Fort Myers before. Oh, wow. See, yeah. So
years before, obviously, I ever knew you. But I've been to your neck of the woods. I've been around there, Bonita Springs. I've been all around that area.
Yep, you need to do it again, and then we'll go get like a sandwich or something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, we got to get you up to Canada. That's my goal, is to get you up to Canada at some point, because it would be a great experience for you. Experiencing. Let me put things in perspective. How nice of a day is it there today?
It's like 70. It's still pretty nice down here too, to be honest with you.
I had to get out the snowblower and start it up and blow about 4 inches of snow out of my driveway when I got home from work.
Thanks.
Yeah, so a little bit of a perspective. We'll bring you up here in the summertime, so you miss all that stuff. But really, you should come up in the winter just so you can experience it. I think it'd be an experience. I wanted to point out something before we get started.
Sure.
You and I have had a lot of back and forth in this podcast here about how the millennial generation, is so much better than my generation.
Come on. This goes both ways, Chris. Come on. It's not me picking on you.
But this is true. But that's because my point is that the Generation X has much better pop culture, right? That's the whole point, right? But you've mentioned to me many times about how things have progressed over the years and how much more advanced and enlightened, we've become as a society.
Hoity-toity. Yes, we're all intellectuals that were born in the 80s
but before you get all too almighty on me here, Yancy, I just wanted to point out one thing to you, okay? I want to point out the fact that it's 2018 and we literally have to tell people not to eat Tide Pods. So just an observation, okay, my friend?
This is correct. Yes. This is all factually true.
Yeah, okay. You ready to get started?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Phoebe Cates in the red bikini scene.
Jody loves Chachis.
Gotta like it.
Didn't she die the same day as Michael Jackson?
But you did meet Fred Savage once.
Ben Savage.
Ben Savage. Because around here, Yancy is the baby-faced one, and I, of course, am the ladies' man.
I'm a huge fan of like that feathered look that the women of the 60s and 70s did with their hair.
Somewhere on your smartphone there, young man. You can look it up.
Is it still around?
It was the two Corys. It was Corey Haim, Corey Feldman.
I actually felt really bad for the guy.
And I had the hugest crush on Susan Ursity.
Who are these people?
Okay, so everybody loves a good sequel. Well, if they're good, that is, maybe not. So we decided this week we would take a rundown at our top 5 favorite movie sequels of all time. We've talked about this before on the podcast, and we figured it makes a pretty good topic because, we love movies, obviously, you and I, and there's a lot of sequels out there, especially in the millennial generation, which we're going to get to. But most sequels suck. It's pretty obvious, right? We know that, right?
Correct. Yep.
So we thought we would come in and we'll do our top 5 list. We do them all the time on this show. We'll run down our top 5 favorite sequels. We'll go back and forth and compare our generation lists and that sort of thing. But before we do that, I think we need to get something out of the way. I think we both are going to pretty much agree on the fact that it's pretty obvious that, we're going to agree on this, that the number one sequel of all time, there's one that stands out so much further ahead of all the other sequels. And luckily enough, it's from my generation. But I think we both agree, sort of indisputably, that the greatest movie sequel of all time, Yancy, is
Dumb and Dumber.
It's so good. Yeah, that one was an awesome one, wasn't it?
It actually wasn't bad.
Yeah. So obviously, The Empire Strikes Back is the greatest sequel ever made, hands down. There's no question. So we figured we would just kind of get this out of the way and talk a bit about up front, because it'd just be a bit redundant if it's number one on both our lists. It takes away from some of our other movies. So why don't we just both agree Empire Strikes Back is the greatest movie sequel ever made, and then we'll do sort of our next top 5. We agree on that one, right?
Yep, absolutely. So we're really doing like a 2 through 6 or something.
Yeah, basically, I guess. But a couple notes about Empire Strikes Back. I want to put this to bed, this issue here, because all this episode 4, episode 5 the only reason I'm bringing this up, Yancy, is because obviously I lived through this stuff. All right. I mean, I was there in 77 and watched the movie in the theaters, the original film. And I remember when they started working on the sequel, the working title for the movie was, any idea what the working title for the sequel was? Want to take a guess?
Star Wars 2.
Absolutely. It was Star Wars.
Really?
It was Star Wars 2, and they were going to call it Star Wars 2. That's what the movie studio wanted to call it, Star Wars 2. That's what it was. And then it was released on May 17th, 1980, right? They obviously called it The Empire Strikes Back. And it really wasn't until the original movie Star Wars was re-released in 1981, then they added that stupid episode 4 A New Hope crap in the opening crawl. God, that's so stupid. So I just want to just put that to bed. That, at the time, it was a Star Wars sequel, and it was going to be called Star Wars 2. They decided to call it Empire Strikes Back. All that other, ideas of 9 series, 3 prequels, 3, sequel things, all that all came later, but at the time it was just The Empire Strikes Back, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, for me, and we mentioned this on a previous podcast as well, to me, Empire Strikes Back is not only the greatest sequel of all time, for me, it's the greatest science fiction film ever made. It's got a planet covered in snow. It's got wampas and tauntauns and the Imperial Walkers. By the way, that's AT-ATs, not AT-ATs.
Right, this has been established, Chris. Yes.
Phil Tippett himself settled that argument for us, the great Phil Tippett. But, the other things the movie's got, Han Solo frozen in carbonite, the city in the clouds, a swamp planet. You can go on and on and on, right? It is the greatest piece of science fiction ever created and put on film. That's what I would say, in addition to being the greatest sequel of all time, correct?
I mean, it sounds hyperbolic what you're saying, but I mean, my first instinct is just say I don't know if I agree with that. But then really, what else would you put there as far as a full, an actual body of science fiction? So, I mean, I'd have to think about it. But I mean, there's a 95% chance that I think I would end up completely agreeing with you. It's so perfect. It really is. I mean, as a sequel, as a standalone, as part of a trilogy, it's a masterpiece. It really is.
And when you think of the pressure that was on that when it came out, unbelievable. Because at the time, Star Wars was the highest grossing film of all time. It was just such a phenomenon in the late 70s. It just took over everything. And then all of a sudden, they're going to make a sequel to it. Well, what? Back then, it was sequels were never as good as the original. So, okay, well, it's just going to be what it is. They're going to try and rehash the stupid story. But lo and behold, it was phenomenal. And anyway, we just wanted to get that out of the way. Empire Strikes Back, greatest ever. So let's get to our top 5. We'll start at number 5 and work our way to 1, or as like you said, maybe 6 to 2. But we'll start at number 5. I'll let you start. So your number 5 favorite sequel of all time, Yancy. I'm very curious to know what your list is going to look like tonight, young man. So go ahead, take us away.
So doing research for the show, I felt like there were a lot of answers that they're probably the right answers. But I went from, like always, a personal enjoyment level, how many times have I actually watched the films? How much did I enjoy them? And I try not to just say what the critical answer is, what the consensus most agreed upon one is. So you're going to hear me leave out some names.
The textbook answer, as people sometimes say that I have.
Yeah, the textbook, the chalk answer. Yes. So I'm trying to leave some of those out just because from a personal enjoyment standpoint, I understand just how powerful they are as standalone pieces of art, and I'm not discrediting them at all. I'm just talking about for you guys come here for the Yance takes, and I'm going to give them to you. So Number 5 for me is the Jurassic Park sequel, The Lost World. It is awesome. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, released in 1997, which is kind of like right in my wheelhouse as far as like the age goes. The gap between the sequel and the original was 47 months, which I think is a really nice kind of like happy, like it wasn't so long you kind of forgot about the film and you still had a lot of the same characters in it. But it was enough time to where they really were able to develop the movie out and make it kind of how they wanted it. I actually think that this movie, and I know this is heresy to a lot of people, but I think this movie is better than the original, which I think is a good mark of of how we stack up with sequels. It's rare that you would see a blockbuster be better than the original, but a lot of people say like The Godfather, the second one is better than the first one, or I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but
all 5 of my examples are really, really close.
Okay, so yeah, so
we'll see.
you can kind of understand what I'm saying, but like with this movie, it takes Jurassic Park and it's less of let's just be in awe of dinosaurs, and it's almost more of a horror, more of a dark film. Instead of having 2 super whiny, annoying prepubescent kids, you only have 1. You know what I mean? So that's less kind of like giving the audience what they want as far as like kids and stuff, and it's more of an adult movie. Jeff Goldblum is back in the movie, but he's also joined by like Julianne Moore and Vince Vaughn's in it. All the acting is really, really strong in it. There's the one scene I think is like one of the most iconic scenes I've ever seen in any type of action film where Julianne Moore is, they're in the van and it's like falling down and, the grass is cracking underneath her and she's trying to hold still and you see it slowly starting to splinter. I think that's just one of the most just everybody can relate to that. It's such a simple scenario, but it just gets such a visceral reaction from you. I think the movie as a whole is just perfect. I mean, it takes all of the parts that we loved from Jurassic Park, and it was still super. It did service to the first film, and it was a nice continuation of it. But it was also its own standalone film. And then you've seen with the later ones. I feel like Jurassic World, which is at this point now the newest one with I forgot his name, the guy off of Parks and Recreation. He does a great job. The film was great. It made a ton of money, but I feel like it was just a continuation of the same stuff. You know what I mean? There wasn't any new ideas. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't super dark, but this was an original sequel, if that can make sense. It was building upon an original story, and it did it in a very, very interesting, amazing way that was super, super dark, even though it was kind of geared towards kids. So Jurassic Park, The Lost World, number 2 of the sequel, or of the trilogy rather, is my number 5.
Wow, I'm a little bit surprised that you would put that ahead of the original Jurassic Park, because I'm a huge fan of the original Jurassic Park as well as you are. I know you are.
Yep.
But I was a little disappointed in the sequel. There were parts of it that I thought were good. I thought the scene in the barn when they were trying to go up to the ceiling and the raptors were that was cool.
Yep.
But to me, here's the thing with that movie. There's a scene and it just happens right at the end when the ship crashes and the T-Rex gets out and starts going around San Diego.
Yeah.
And to me, that only lasts for 5 minutes. And to me, I would have liked to have seen that more, because to me, that right there was King Kong to the max.
Yep.
And so I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. But overall, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I also liked when they were up in the high hide or whatever they called it, and then all the raptors were running through the cornfield, and you could see them kind of all coming in on them,
picking them off one by one.
That was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
There were some good things about it, but no, I thought the original was better. But anyway, that's what we're arguing about. Okay, so here's one example. My number 5 is the original was better than this one, but this one was pretty close, and that's Airplane 2, the sequel. It came out in 1982, and it's just basically it is a real rehash of what happens in Airplane. So the idea is, and you've seen Airplane because I made you watch it here on the podcast.
I actually have. Yes, I have.
So great. So in this one, in the sequel, it's just more of the same. It's just sight gags nonstop, a mile a minute. Unbelievable.
Is it a lot of the same cast?
There is some of the same cast, and then what they did was they went out like Robert Hayes is in it and Julie Haggerty, but then they went out and got some other people and William Shatner. So they because remember the first movie, and Peter Graves is back and stuff like that. But one of the cool things with the original movie to me was they got a lot of actors who were known for serious work. At the time, Leslie Nielsen was a serious actor. And Peter Graves and guys like that, Robert Stack.
That's so hard to believe about
I know.
Nelson. I can't picture him being a serious actor at all.
This movie turned around his career, right? He sort of reinvented himself. And another person that reinvented themselves as a result of these movies was in this second one. That was William Shatner. Up until then, he was James T. Kirk, right? And that's pretty much all that he did. And then he came out with this, and then they realized, hey man, he's pretty funny too. He can be really funny. And it wasn't long after this, about 4 years after this, actually was 1986, when he went on Saturday Night Live and did that famous sketch. Have you ever seen the Get a Life sketch or heard about that? Yancy?
I don't think I have.
Okay,
Chris, no.
so what I want you to do is make some notes. Okay, so I want you to go to YouTube and I want you to find SNL Get a Life. And what it is it's William Shatner's, the host that week. And what he does is he basically plays himself. He's William Shatner and he's at one of these like Comic-Con conventions. He's at like a Star Trek convention and he realizes just how silly everyone is. So he just starts yelling at them. He gets up on stage, gets on the microphone. He's like, what's wrong with you people? Get a life. What do you live in your parents' basements? He's like, you with the plastic ears, with the Spock ears. Have you ever kissed a woman? Like he just starts going after him. And it's so funny.
Is it with Phil Hartman?
What's that? Phil Hartman is in the scene as well. Yep.
Okay.
And
all right.
I'm telling you, man, so he really kind of reinvented himself. But in this movie, in Airplane 2, the sequel, the idea is there's like a lunar shuttle, okay, like the space shuttle, and it's going to the moon. And so people have paid and bought tickets to go there, but it like gets sidetracked and starts aiming toward the sun. So then they have to try and.
The premise of the film is they're going to the moon.
They're going to the moon. There's a base on the moon. Exactly. And
this is so stupid.
It's so funny.
I haven't even seen it.
No, but trust me, you'd like it. And oh man, it's so good. And my two favorite characters from the first movie, Scott and Arthur, the two jive guys, they're not back. Just one of them is back, but he does a scene in the courtroom that is just so funny. He's describing like what happens to the airplane. It's either because they get him and they put him on trial. They're like, what happened? Like in the first movie, like did Robert Hayes' character, Ted Stryker, right? Like what happened with Stryker? And then he just comes in and starts talking jive. And it's like, wrap that sucker around a runway like a mother. And it's so funny. I love it. I love Airplane. I love it to death. Airplane 2, the sequel is great too. So it's number 5 for me.
Very nice. I didn't think about that, but as I was like going through, how like you'll just like Google like lists of like sequels and stuff. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like forgetting something. Like I've forgotten about like really, really big stuff before, and I kind of felt stupid. And I saw Airplane 2, and I was like, oh, like I guess there's a sequel. Like it would make sense that there would be. I just never thought to watch it. But I literally thought to myself, Chris, I'm like, McBrien's going to talk about that tonight. He is. He's going to throw that out there. He has to. There's no way he can't not talk about it. So.
And I don't want. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention one of my favorite people in that movie was Sonny Bono. So Sonny Bono was in it too. You have to watch it. Like it's so hard to explain, but it's good. People that are listening that know Airplane 2 the sequel are like, yes, you're right. It is a good one. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, you're number 4. What do you got?
All right, so number 4 for me is probably going to be my least popular pick of the entire show, and it's Prometheus. It came out in 2012, and it was directed by the original Ridley Scott. And I think it surprised a lot of people that he would actually revisit this, considering the fact that the gap between the sequel and the original was 399 months. So obviously quite some time. The thing about Prometheus is it is very divisive as far as what people thought of it, especially diehard fans of the original Aliens. It is not like your typical, like what you come to think of as far as like a pure thriller or pure horror film. There's not like the just the trademark, aliens and action scenes and just like the really, really tense scenes that you've come used to as far as this franchise goes. But it is more of like a mind kind of tease thing, and it plays on more of like the actual origins of mankind. Basically, like this doctor trying to go to this very, very far off place, finding little clues on Earth from ancient civilizations here on Earth, from tens of thousands of years ago, and basically just trying to find out like what actually happened with why were we brought here, why were we created, who is our maker. Any movie that really touches on that, like the actual origins of life, I think is really, really interesting to me, and it's just like a new take on like what is creationism versus any other type of religiosity that people might have. But it's a super, super unique movie. I think it's a real big departure from a lot of the other Ridley Scott films that we have seen in the past. It does stand up as far as leaving a lot of stuff to interpretation, leaving things very, very ambiguous. It's shot amazingly. Guy Pearce is in this, and he's absolutely fantastic. Like I said, this is a movie that pissed off a lot of people, and it left them with more questions than answers. But like with The Matrix and like a lot of other movies that I've mentioned in the past, the more you watch this, the more you will actually understand it a lot more, and you will get some of those answers, but not all of them. This is a franchise that isn't done yet. It's still very much, in transition, and like it's still building upon with future movies set to be released. But I just thought it was one of the coolest, like just most visually, aesthetically pleasing, weirdly alien sci-fi that I have seen in a long time. And like, it really like made me think for months and months and months. I've watched this probably 10, 15 times in the last couple of years since it's been out. And I just think it's an actual, like a complete masterpiece that a lot of people dog, but I frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. So
what you're saying is, Prometheus is a sequel to Alien. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
But it's like a little ways down the line, obviously, because they'd made a bunch of movies. Okay.
Much further.
Okay.
Yes, much further. But it is a continuation of that same franchise. It just touches on. It kind of takes a different route than what we're used to seeing as far as like the Alien films go. But yeah, it confused a lot of people, and like I said, it gave them a lot more questions than answers.
This is why I like doing this podcast. I learn a new thing every day. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so my number 4, I'm going to go with Cheech and Chong's next movie. Okay,
Chris.
Oh man. So now hear me out. Okay. So in 1978, Cheech and Chong came out with Up in Smoke, and I didn't like that movie very much. I thought it was dumb. I've
never seen it, but I know of it. I've heard it.
You know of Cheech and Chong, right? You know of these two guys. They're two stoners, right? And like they just hang out and they do whatever. They do drugs. And like I say, 1978 they came out with Up in Smoke, and it was a bit of a sensation because these guys had been going around the country and doing a stand-up routine for quite a few years, right? And they were getting a lot of. Yeah, before they made movies. And so they were getting some notoriety, and they were making a name for themselves, so they got to make a movie, Up in Smoke. And like I said, I didn't like it. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was stupid. But then they came out with a sequel called Cheech and Chong's Next Movie. And I actually really, really like this movie a lot. It's way better than the original. And the thing is that gets me about this movie that I like about it so much is that literally, I swear, you watch the movie from beginning to end, even if you were sitting there making notes, like if I told you, hey, you got to watch it and review it, you make notes, literally nothing happens in this movie. Like, you know how there's the old joke with Seinfeld, like it's a show about nothing? This is a movie about nothing, okay? Nothing happens. The movie opens up, they're trying to siphon gasoline out of a car because they can't afford gas. And then, like, they just hang out, like Chong's got this motorcycle and he puts it inside the living room and then just runs a pipe out and just sits there and just revs it. That's all he does, just revving it. Like nothing happens. And then they're like, oh man, I wrote a song. And then he's like, oh yeah, I wrote a song too. It's called Beaners. And he sings this, like nothing, like they don't do anything. There's no real plot. Like it's just, they just go from like thing to thing, hanging out, like, trying to look for some more roaches that are laying around so they could smoke them. And like, then they're drinking. Like, it's just like nothing happens. So about a year ago, but I really love this movie. It's funny. There's some funny scenes in it. There's the appearance of a couple people that I think were pretty much new at the time. Like Paul Rubens was in it, before he was Pee Wee Herman, he did this. Edie McClurg was in it. And before I think she had done anything else. And Michael Winslow, he's the guy that makes all the funny noises from Police Academy. They were all in this movie like before they were anybody's. And maybe it was all part of that underground comedy scene from the 70s that they were in with Cheech and Chong, maybe. I don't know. But about a year ago, I made my wife watch this. I'm like, you got to watch Cheech and Chong's next movie. She's like, okay, whatever. I'll watch whatever you want. Put it on. She lasted 10 minutes. She's like, you have to turn this off. She's like, I can't watch this. This is absolute crap. So I had to turn it off. But for those in the know, for those that know it and those that like it, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Cheech and Chong's Next Movie, baby. It's number 4.
Wow. You're doing some deep cuts, Chris. I'm not going to lie.
I like that movie a lot.
I've noticed this. You've never shied away from unpopular picks in the past, and it holds true again tonight. So good on you. It's Cheech and Chong is the original Up in Smoke. Honestly, is that like a movie that I need to see?
No.
Like I know that there's a lot of movies I need to.
No,
not at all.
No. If you're going to watch any Cheech and Chong stuff, I'd say watch Cheech and Chong's Next Movie.
Okay.
Just and the reason is, again, because you want to get that kind of counterculture thing that they were going after. For me, this movie is the best example of it because they made other movies too. Then they made Nice Dreams, and then they made Things Are Tough All Over, and then they made The Corsican Brothers. So they made other movies. But this one was the one to me that captures their sort of subversive counterculture, humor and their approach to life the best. And it was directed by Tommy Chong, too. I remember that. But no, you don't. This is, if I was going to make you watch any of the Cheech and Chong movies, it'd be this one. But no, Up in Smoke, you don't have to watch it. No.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So what is my number 4?
Number 3. You're number 3 now.
Number 3. Sorry. So number 3 for me is probably. I don't know. It's weird that I throw out like movies like this occasionally. Like we referenced, or actually we did a review on The Lion King, and you liked it. I kind of have a special affinity for animated movies. Yep. And I don't know why. I just always have. I love animated shows. Like I love like The Simpsons and Bob's Burgers and Rick and Morty, and I spend a decent amount of time actually watching animated stuff. I think it's I read a book one time and it was talking about art forms in America, right? And for years and years and years, the only purely original art forms to ever originate out of America were cartoons and jazz.
Yep.
That was like the two things that we could say completely came from America. They weren't derivative of something else. It came from us.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
But what about country music? Doesn't country music come? It comes from the United States, doesn't it?
I mean, I think country music does, but like you have to think like, that was derived from, the mandolin guitar or, instrumentation like predominantly that you would find from like Eastern Asian cultures. Like I'm just guessing here. I don't know, but
no, I just because I've heard that too. I've heard that, jazz is the only true American art form,
Right.
I think of country music. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an interesting aside. Maybe we'll talk about it on another show or something. So number 5 for me it was released in 1999. It was directed by John Lasseter, Ash Brandon, and Lee Unkrich, and it is Toy Story 2. Toy Story 1 is obviously fantastic. It at the time was one of the highest grossing animated films of all time, maybe the most highest. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Toy Story 2 came out 48 months later, which felt like an eternity whenever I was a kid and I was waiting for the second one to come out. It is honestly, it's absolutely magical. I think it might be, just like I said with Jurassic Park, I really mean it with this one. I think Toy Story 2 is the class of the entire Pixar franchise. This was the first sequel that Pixar ever did. Everybody said that it was super risky. Why would you? They understood it from like a financial standpoint, that they would like to build on the franchise and make it more of like a a bigger multi-movie type of thing. But it was such a perfect film in its first iteration that they thought it was incredibly risky to kind of tarnish the reputation of such a strong movie. But Toy Story 2 is awesome. I mean, they added new characters. It was a completely different plot line. Jessie, she brought like a more like a strong like feminine role that was like super strong, and she was interesting, and it appealed to boys, it appealed to girls. There's so much stuff that goes into this where it's just incredibly thought out. It has a lot of heart, a lot of emotion. I mean, there's a part of me that like wants to cry at the end, or at certain parts of every single Toy Story movie. I just think they're so magical. Even like Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3 was pretty dark too, but this is the most like just tear jerking, just beautiful. I think it captures like that weird in between like kids growing up and like the relationship that they have with their toys, the relationship that they have with their parents and their adults and people around them. And I just think it's just so well done. And it's like I said, it's weird. It's weird that I would just have such an affinity for animated films, but I do inexplicably. And this is probably, like I said, one of the best, if not the best animated movie I've ever seen. So.
Wow.
What's that? You gonna say something?
No, I'm shocked. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If I could.
Yeah.
Now that was near number 3, and you've got 2 more to go. And you don't have to tip too much. Just say yes or no. Is either one of your second or number 1 movie the next movie in that franchise?
Actually, it's not.
Okay.
My wife and I, we were discussing this too. I love Toy Story 3 too, and like I said, it was really, really tough, and there's a lot of stuff that I have to get in here, but we're only doing 5. So like I had to go from like a, rewatchability, which one did I actually watch the most, that type of thing. I wanted to give it a nod. It's in my honorable mentions, but no, unfortunately, Toy Story 3 is not in the rest of my list.
Only because like this is obviously in your generation, not mine, but because I got young kids, right? So I watched these movies, and I'm a little surprised because I found Toy Story 2 to be kind of not very good. I wasn't crazy about the story and that, but Toy Story 3, I remember when it came out in 2010, I felt that it was not the best animated film that year. I felt that it was the best film that year. Toy Story 3 was phenomenal. Like it mind-bogglingly good. The story, the way it tugs at your heartstrings. You talk about kids' relationship with their toys. I think was much more explored in Toy Story 3 than it was in Toy Story 2 because the kid got older and moved on, and I think Toy Story 3, you mentioned about getting, sort of emotionally attached to movies and, getting, teary-eyed about movies. Toy Story 3 would be one movie that could make a grown man cry. If ever there was an animated movie that could make a grown man cry, it's Toy Story 3. It was so good, so so that's just my take on it. As a Gen Xer who has young kids, and we put these movies on and, let them watch it. And I was like, holy smokes, is that ever good? So I'm just surprised that you went with 2 over 3. That's all. And again, I'm not, as emotionally invested in these films as you are. They're your generation, and rightly so. But that's just my take on it.
No, that's fair. I mean, I can't. I don't know how to articulate like as well as you did exactly why I like 2 over 3 as much. Like I think it's just more of like it was more in my wheelhouse whenever it came out originally. You know what I mean? And like that anticipation between the first and the second, just how much I looked forward to it and how excited I was to see it. And like I was a kid who was almost maybe right in that period where I was kind of getting too old for it, but I was still excited. You know what I mean? Like I was right on that cusp of like, kind of becoming like a teenager and stuff like that. Like I was literally a preteen. So there were a lot of parallels that I drew from the movie to me being a child at the time. So like this is literally me hearkening back. Like you'll always romanticize movies that came out whenever you're a kid. You know what I mean? Oh, and there's nothing some millennial in a podcast or anybody else will ever tell you. Like you're just going to always gravitate towards that. And I think that's the relationship they have with Toy Story 2. I'm not going to say anything negative about Toy Story 3 too, because I could just as easily slot that in and gush about that movie too. But let's just agree that the franchise as a whole is just absolutely perfect. It really is like one of the great pieces of movie making of like the last 25 years. I really mean that.
I agree. Okay, so my number 3, and this one maybe will shock some people, but I'm going to go, because one of my favorite movies of all time is Jaws, right?
Yep.
I'm going with Jaws 2. And here's the thing. So it came out in 1978. The original came out in 75, right?
Yeah.
And Jaws 2 always holds a very special place in my heart for a lot of reasons. I like it. As far as sequels go, I think this movie actually really delivers. But here's one of the reasons why it's so special. And this is one of the things we always share on the podcast, things that are close to us. Okay, so a little thing that you don't know about me, Yancy. When I was 9 years old in 1979, I moved to Venezuela for a year. I lived in Maracaibo, Venezuela for a year because my dad got a job there. It was a year contract. So the whole family moved down. And they put us all up. This company put us up there and everything. So anyway, so I lived there for a year, which was quite an experience, for a 9-year-old. And it's very culturally significant in my life. But the thing was, you got to remember, I'm a kid that loved like Saturday morning TV. I loved movies. I loved TV shows. I loved all that stuff. I get put into Maracaibo, Venezuela in 1979. Unlike today with the internet and everything, there's nothing English. I mean, nothing English on TV, no English movies, there's nothing. So my parents actually got a VCR. Okay. And it was like it was like a prototype, one of the like ones that loads from the top. We actually had a VCR. So it was like a big deal back then. And we went out and bought a couple movies. So it's just like the same movies you watch over and over again. But one of them was Jaws 2. So I watched it because I had nothing else in English. I watched Jaws 2 probably like 100 times if I've seen it once, because I watched it over and over. And my friend, I befriended another kid when I was there. He was from Texas. Okay. So he was American. So we both kind of, Canadian American. We get along, whatever. We both speak English. This is great. And we would watch this movie over and over and over and over and over again. We would go into the pool, the swimming pool, and like reenact the scenes. Stuff like we just love that movie so much. So for me, it's number 3. It's very close to my heart. In terms of the sort of the lexicon of film, maybe not so much. Spielberg would have nothing to do with the movie. They wanted him to direct it, of course. He's like, there's no way. I've done the definitive film in Jaws, the definitive shark film. I'm done. I'm moving on. So they went out and got Enoch Schwartz to direct it. He was like a TV director, had done shows like Night Gallery and Kojak and stuff like that. And he took a totally different approach. Remember, the best thing with Jaws was you never see the shark. Right. And that's what made it so scary. In this one, Enoch Schwartz said, no, I want to show the shark constantly. I want to see it right from the beginning. I want to see it all the time. And that's what he did, right? It was like overkill, but it was pretty good. The idea, this one, you've never seen it, I'm assuming, Yancy?
I have not seen the second one, no.
So the idea is that it's still Brody and his wife, and it's like Murray Hamilton's there. So all their characters come back, and just, Brody's kids, they're a little bit older now. So one of them's a teenager. So he gets together with all of his teenage friends, and they go out day sailing in these boats, and they decide to head way out to this place called Cable Junction. It's way out. There's all these rocks where I guess all the power lines and stuff head out to, and that's where they all kind of, meet up. And they're going out there, and of course there's a shark, and it decides to, terrorize these teenagers. That was a big thing in the late 70s and early 80s. Teenagers being terrorized by things, but it was really good. I actually liked it. And for all those reasons, it's always stuck with me. So Jaws 2 is high on my list. High, number 3. So there you go.
So I've got a question for you, Chris.
Sure.
So we've talked about Jaws and, just its place as far as like, one of the greatest films of all time. Just how it's just wildly lauded as like one of the best films made.
One of the best. It's one of my top 3 movies ever. Jaws, yeah.
So my question for you is, like, you were talking about Jaws and you loved it so much when it first came out, and then it did come out with the sequel. So what is your general attitude? Like, how do you approach whenever you see a movie that you do love or a film that you do love and see that they're coming out with a sequel? Are you first initially excited, or are you almost like scared because you do love something and you don't want it to be tainted by that? Because I don't know if we were planning on touching on this, but I've been burned pretty bad by sequels of movies that I did love that I thought were awful, and actually kind of like they took some of the luster off of the original movie. Like, how do you feel about, sequels as a whole? Is it something that we should leave alone, or do you like that continuation of a story?
Well, I think I'm going to answer that best when we get to my number 2 and my number 1. Okay. So we'll circle back to that. But I don't think, especially when I was a kid, and I think it's different now that I'm an adult. Okay. So when I was a kid, like, if I loved Jaws, they were making a second one, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I couldn't wait to see it. I thought it was great. Star Wars, their sequel was coming out. And speaking of which, so I went to Venezuela for a year and I got back in May of 1980, just in time for the Star Wars sequel to drop. It was one of the first things I did when I got back to Canada went to see the new Star Wars movie, So sequels as a kid, I think were different than they were as an adult, because I've been able to revisit some of them, not on my list tonight, that were terrible. And as a result, I think over time too, I've personally believe Hollywood is getting less and less creative all the time. And so then when it comes to sequels, it's just like they're just cookie cuttering them. I'm getting sort of numbed to the millennial sequels, okay? Because to me, it's just like they just keep churning them out, and then they try to trick you by, it's not Jaws 2, or they give it a different name. It's like, it's not what's that, like Avengers. It's not Avengers 2. It's Avengers, Civil War or something like that. They give it never the other title. Like, I'm like, come on, guy. Like, to me, because now they call them a franchise of films, and it's like, you're just trying to make more money off the same thing, right?
Yeah. I think that's mostly the problem I have with franchises. Is I think a lot of times the intentions are not pure. I think it's simply capitalizing on the success of a past film. Yeah. Oftentimes, like, you'll see a sequel where it doesn't even have the same directorial staff, it doesn't have the same producers, it does not have the same writer. It is basically a company buying the rights to a name and using that name to capitalize and just make money off of it. They know that even if it's not a good movie, even if it's not critically acclaimed, people are going to go because they think that it's a continuation of the story, when oftentimes it's not. That's kind of what I have a problem with a lot of sequels. Occasionally you'll run into ones like, for instance, like, you mentioned like the Avengers, Iron Man. I do not like comic book movies. I've told you guys this. Most of them, I think, are just retreads of the same stories over and over again. They introduce characters and immediately expect you to care about them, and they suck. But like Iron Man, all those movies are fantastic. They're well thought out. They're well acted. Robert Downey Jr. does a great job. And you can tell they put a lot of intellectual resources into making them good movies. But then you have other ones, like the X-Men franchise, one of the most uneven comic book franchises I've ever seen, where some of them are very good and other ones are just completely, they're just thrown together just to capitalize on that. So I definitely see what you're talking about. Like, it can go both ways, but I think overall for me, I always err like on the side of caution when it comes to them. I don't get too anticipatory. I don't get too hyped up about it. I just kind of take it for what it is.
So I think, based on what you're saying, I'm going to come to the defense of Jaws too, because where, like you're saying, a lot of times some of these movies, they just sort of make a movie based on the first one, like you're writing on its coattails. Like you said, different producers, different director, all that stuff. So Jaws 2 did have a different director. Like I said, it was Gene X. Schwartz. It wasn't Spielberg, but it was produced by David Brown and Richard D. Zanuck, the same producers of the first film. And it was written by Carl Gottlieb and Howard Sackler, who both wrote the first movie too. So there was a lot of holdovers to this one. And as a result, I think that's why it packs a little bit more punch for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well said.
Oh, okay. On to your number 2. What do you got?
All right, so my number 2 is Mad Max Fury Road. So we know that it just came out a couple of years ago, and it won essentially every single award known to mankind. It is obviously a really, really good movie, but it was a spinoff of an Australian dystopian action media franchise where it began in 1979, Chris. So right before you were born, or wait, no, you were born in 1970, right?
Yeah, 1969. I was born.
1969, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm 10 years off. So 1979, and it was followed by 3 films. So you had Mad Max 2 that came out in 91, Mad Max Beyond, and basically everybody calls that one Thunderdome in 1985, and then Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015.
Yeah. Now, just to go back again, Mad Max 2, it was actually, I remember when it came out, they called it The Road Warrior.
Okay, I actually did not know that. Okay.
Because there was Mad Max, and then there was The Road Warrior, and that was the sequel to it. And then it went to Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. But anyway, sorry.
Yep, well done, Chris.
Just because I was there, I remember it. That's all.
Yep. Just for posterity's sake, like Chris likes to make sure that we dot our T's and cross our I's. Yeah. So I have an interesting relationship with this movie. It is a very new movie, and this is actually this kind of sounds like a cop out, and it goes with a criteria that's completely different than the other films that I listed on the show tonight. I watched Mad Max Fury Road first. I watched it when it first came out in theaters, and I've watched it half a dozen times since then. It won all the awards because it was deserving of winning all the awards. It is an amazing, amazing film. Absolutely creative. I could gush about this film for hours. It was critically acclaimed. It was, it didn't actually go off in the box office, but everybody who watched this movie really appreciated it as being something that was just so seminal and so completely original. You know what I mean? Just really interesting, action figures and costumes and interactions between the characters, and just a cool ass movie. So whenever I watched the first one, to be honest with you, this is, there are huge gaps in my pop culture zeitgeist knowledge. I didn't realize that this was a sequel. I thought it was just a movie, and I think millennials are guilty of that a lot, Chris. This, we're like, oh, this movie is so great. You're like, yeah, well, that's literally just a remake. Like you said, they stole this idea and they're just repackaging it for whatever reason. So I went back and I watched all of these movies. It took me a while.
See, I was gonna ask you that when you mentioned this. Yes. I was gonna go, have you ever gone back and watched these? So this is great. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I went back and watched them, and I was surprised at how excellent the originals were.
Yeah.
Really, really excellent. And I think that this one gets Mad Max Fury Road. It gets a lot of the credit just because it's the newest one. Obviously, as far as an aesthetic standpoint, it looks the nicest. It had the biggest budget and everything. But every single film in this franchise is so freaking cool. It is so well done. The writing is amazing. Mel Gibson's awesome in it. If I have one complaint about Mad Max Fury Road, is that they didn't somehow incorporate Mel Gibson's character or have him actually take the title role. You know what I mean? Hardy does a really great job with this as the lead character. He doesn't speak much, I think, or at all. It's still a really good movie, but it would have nice to see kind of that continuation, even though it was something 30 years or something like that beforehand. It's really interesting, though, that you would see a sequel, like I mentioned with Prometheus and the Alien franchise, that they would go so long, and that the original writers and directors would actually want to be a part of this. But that's something that did happen. It worked out. George Miller and Byron Kennedy basically created a masterpiece out of nothing. And, they lucked out in a lot of ways as far as the production goes with this film. Like, they were going to, record in a different area, and something didn't work out with weather and logistics. And there was just so many different things involved with this. But everything was pulled together. They were able to secure more funding later on by having to push back production. And essentially what came from it was an absolute masterpiece that kind of wrapped up this whole franchise in just one of the most satisfying ways I think I've ever seen. Like I said, so it's weird that I would watch the last installment first and then want to go back, but it gave me such an appreciation for the original films, and actually made me like the new one even more, because you could tell, like I said, same writers, same directors, a lot of the different actors and stuff, obviously, but there were people who had a vision where they treated this like their baby, and you could tell they deeply cared about this story, about this world that they had created, and it honestly is masterful. I can't. If there's a movie in the last 4 or 5 years that has come out that you have not seen, or if I had to recommend one for somebody that doesn't really know a whole lot about movies, or is like me and misses a lot of stuff, this would be the movie that I think everybody should go back and see. It's that freaking good.
Very good. Okay, my number 2 is now, I don't know if you've ever seen. Now, you talk about these comic book movies. I know you said you don't like them, right? But
correct.
The original comic. Do you have any idea what the original comic book movie of all time is?
Superman.
Yes, Superman from 1978. Okay, so and it came out and it was a big deal. Everyone loved it. It was great. Christopher Reeve was awesome in it and all this stuff. And then they're going to make a sequel to it. And the sequel is Superman 2, and it makes my list at number 2. I love Superman 2. It's way better than the original. And one of the cool things I like about it is it builds on certain things that happen in the first. Have you ever seen the original Superman movie from 78?
I haven't. No, okay. I haven't.
At the very beginning of the movie, they're on the planet Krypton, and there's these 3 guys. There's General Zod, and then there's Ursa and Non, and they're like these criminals. And what they're doing is they're banishing them. They put him in like this glass thing, and then they banish them out into space. Okay. And whatever, that happens. And then the rest of the movie goes on and such, everything happens. It's just an afterthought, right? And then you get to Superman 2. And what happens is in this one, Superman is, he's Clark Kent during the day, right? And then what happens is that he actually falls in love with Lois Lane. Okay. And then he decides the only way he can be with her is if he renounces his superheroes, all of his superpowers, right? So he does that. He goes up to his like Fortress of Solitude, and he gets like this crystal, and it makes him lose his powers. So he's now a human. He's immortal. Okay. And that's great. He's going to continue his life with her. Life is good. And then all of a sudden, those 3 people from the first movie that were banished escape, and they decide that they want revenge. And they realize that Krypton has blown up, but they know that one person got away, and that was Superman. So they come to Earth to find him because they want to get him. And they get there and they realize, you know what? Earth is a playground. We can destroy this place. And they start walking all over everybody, right? And Superman realizes, oh no, I need to get my powers back somehow to fight these guys. And it's just good. I don't know. It was a really troubled production, which usually ends up with a really, really bad movie. Because the original director, they had to replace him and all this, but the movie is really, really good as far as action films go. And Terrence Stamp gives the performance of his career as General Zod. He's so good. Outstanding. Off the charts. He's so good. And so I saw this movie obviously when I was a kid. It came out in 1980. So I was 10. I thought it was great, And I just really, I've always loved Superman 2. So yeah, that's why it's that high. It's number 2 on my list. Love this movie.
So is Superman 2, I mean, is it... I'm thinking of like Adam West Batman. All right. So like you need to like steer me in the right direction. As far as like the acting and like the actual way that the film is shot, is this like a serious movie? Is it like a drama? Like where does this fall in? So like it's like an actual movie
It's a movie. It's serious. These guys are in downtown Manhattan throwing buses around and smashing the place up and everything like that. And the thing is, the one thing that gives it a bit of a different spin is Christopher Reeve, because he uses humor in his role very subtly in places. And just in his performance, very, very subtle with some of his humor. He was a much, much better actor than I think people gave him credit for. And because you think of, he's Superman. What does that take? He gets to wear tights and a cape. That's not acting. But he is actually quite good in it. Quite good in it. You know who is like a robot playing Superman is, what was the guy's name that did the remake that came out in your generation? He's like
Ben Affleck?
No,
he was Batman.
No, he's Batman. I can't remember the guy's name. He looked like Christopher Reeve. That's why he got the role. Couldn't act a lick. Couldn't act if he tried. I remember he had a small role in Mean Girls too. His name escapes me. It doesn't matter. It's a millennial thing. But
You're so mean, man.
I know.
His mom cares.
I know. His mom's listening too, I'm sure. But this one, it's actually a serious movie. There's a lot of action in it. It's great. And like I say, it packs a punch for a sequel. I think it's better than the original one. The original one was good, but it was a little bit too long, and it was a little there was too much backstory in the first one too, whereas this one gets right down to business right off the hop. So I like it. Superman 2, number 2 for me. On to your number 1, which we know is sort of the number 2 because Empire Strikes Back is up there. But what's your number 1 on this
Correct.
list?
Really quickly, just 2 honorable mentions. Terminator 2, we have to talk about that. I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but I just wanted to give it a nod. It is fantastic, and it deserves all the credit. And The Dark Knight, we've reviewed it a couple of weeks ago. You guys can go back and listen to that. Dark Knight is fantastic, directed by Christopher Nolan, came out in 2008, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was like the crown jewel of that Batman franchise. I still think it might be one of the best Batman, if not the best Batman movie of all time. And then, so number 1 for me is Aliens, directed by James Cameron. It came out in 1986. I mentioned Prometheus at the top. Prometheus came out much, much later, and it's the same. It operates in the same universe, but it's kind of a different story. It's more of like a side story that gives you a little bit more back info and kind of explains, origins, and like you just mentioned with Superman, it's a little bit more backstory-ish, which I think a lot of people kind of they rebuke the story in itself, and it's super ambiguous, so it's a little bit more difficult to understand. But Aliens in itself is it's just one of the most badass movies ever created. Let's get real. A brief synopsis. After floating in space for almost 60 years, Sigourney Weaver's character is found by a deep space salvage team. They find that there's only one survivor. It's a 9-year-old girl named Newt. And these Marines are basically doing everything they can to fight off hundreds of aliens that have invaded this colony. I was reading Roger Ebert's review back in 1986 when I first wrote it. And he said the ad for Aliens claims that this movie will frighten you as few movies ever have. And for once, the ads do not lie. This movie was so intense that it creates a problem for me as a reviewer. Do I praise its craftsmanship, or do I tell you that it left me feeling completely wrung out and unhappy? It's been a week since I've seen it, and I still have nightmares. So that, I think, perfectly encapsulates exactly what this film does. It is badass. It is amazing. It makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. It makes you jump. It makes you scream. It makes you want to cry. It makes you have, nervous convulsions and like ticking. And I remember the first time I saw it, like I'm literally just sitting there and like my legs are shaking off of the floor. Like it is so well done. It perfectly encapsulates just like what a horror thriller alien sci-fi film is supposed to be. There is nothing wrong about it. Everything is freaking awesome about this movie. You can watch it over and over again. And what's like super interesting is the gap between the sequel and the original, 86 months. You do not see that type of gap, that type of layover in a lot of sequels. And, it can go both ways. I've referenced this many times. The Matrix is my favorite film of all time. Actually, this past weekend, while I was hanging out with Sammy, he and I were watching The Matrix together, and we started talking about the sequels and about how pissed off we were that the sequels were so bad, especially when you consider the fact that there was such a huge gap of time in between the first Matrix and the Matrix Reloaded and the Matrix Revolutions, right? You would expect a movie that had a ton of success and then have a huge layover till the next film that they would have taken the time to get it right. And that's not always the case. Oftentimes, the more time you have to meddle, the more times you have to screw up the story. That was not the case with Aliens. James Cameron did an absolutely amazing job. It's about as close to a perfect film, especially a sci-fi film, as you can actually get. It's masterful. It's a classic. Chris, I know you've seen it. My question is, have you seen it in theaters? And where does it kind of stand for you as overall sci-fi films of all time? What do you think about it?
Oh man, you're gonna hate me. I've never seen it.
I don't know what to say.
I know.
How is that even possible?
I know. I was never. I liked the first movie. I thought it was good, but I didn't love it. And so as a result, I never continued on with the franchise. I never watched another one.
Wow, that is so wild.
I know, it's weird, eh?
That's actually really. That's fine. There's a million really popular movies. I've never seen The Godfather. I've never seen Back to the Future. So F me, right? There's one little more excerpt that I had read on what site is it? EmpireOnline.com. Just reading about this movie, and it kind of encapsulates what's going on with this. It says that Dave Cameron's genius here lies in manipulating the tension, the beautifully structuring the switches from buildup to pure carnage to waiting to action. That is literally what makes this so special, right? There's a million things happening and a ton of stuff jumping at the screen. Then there is nothing happening. Then there's all this noise and just chaos. And then there's just the sheer panic and the still buildup and the hearing people breathe and losing control of their emotions. Everything about this is just so perfect, Chris. Man, this almost makes me want to change up my movie for tonight and have us watch this movie. Maybe we'll do that. But I think it's the best. The second best, I will say that the second best sequel of all time. It's so perfect. It's timeless. I know oftentimes you'll see older movies, they'll have a short run, especially Halloween movies and stuff. They'll play them in theaters. I would love to see this movie be shown in an IMAX theater or something. And I would love to take my wife for this because it is that freaking good. It's the perfect date movie.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because a lot of times you always hear the same thing over and over again. It's like a mantra, right? Sequels are never as good as the original. We hear that. But there's some examples that we've given tonight. My number's 4-1. Definitely, I think, in my opinion, are all much better than the original film. So I think there's lots of examples where the sequel's better than the original film. But just for the most part, that's not the case. But there certainly are examples. So for me, for my number one, okay, when you were gone, I remember when you ran into the hurricane, when all that stuff happened to you back in September, and we had Caveman come on the show and sit in for a couple shows. One of the topics that we did was our biggest movie disappointments of all time, and my number one was Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Because I used to love the show in the 70s. It was on in reruns. I used to watch it after school every day. And I really loved the Star Trek. And then when I heard they were coming out with a movie, I was so excited. And then the movie came out and it was like, oh my God, this movie's awful. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was boring. And then they said, oh, we're going to make a sequel to it. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be worse. And but I did go to the theater to see it in 1982. And ladies and gentlemen, it is the greatest sequel ever made, and that's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Oh, it's so good. So whereas the first movie is dumb and boring, this one is full of action right from the get-go, and it is great. And kind of like what I mentioned with Superman 2, that kind of borrowed elements of the first movie to build on Superman 2. But this thing is a little bit more unique. What it does is Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, builds on an old episode of Star Trek. And there was an episode in 1967 called Space Seed. And in it, there was Khan, right? And he was this tyrant or whatever. And then they send him into exile, much like in Superman 2, right? They send this guy out into exile. And in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, he comes back and wants revenge on Kirk. And he wants revenge on the crew of the Enterprise. And it's like, it's just so good. And Ricardo Montalban is the great Ricardo Montalban is in it, right? Playing Khan. And he played the role originally in Space Seed, the episode. And so he reprises his role and he's so good. And just some of the things that are going on with Kirk and things like that. The movie is just so good. And it was a big success at the time. I remember watching it and just being enamored with it. And I was just the thing is that made me feel so good about it was like all the magic of the Star Trek show and all the episodes, all the fun that I had after school every day at 5 o'clock when I would come home, I'd play some road hockey. That's what we do here in Canada. And then at 5 o'clock, I would watch Star Trek, an episode of Star Trek before dinner every day. And it gave me so much magic. I loved that show when I was a kid. You know, I was like 7, 8 years old, just loved watching that every day. And then all that magic was sucked out of me with Star Trek, the motion picture. But this was like a redemption. It was like, yes, this is what Star Trek used to be. It's so fun. It's just great. There's action. Yeah, you watch it. Some of it's cheesy, like Khan and all this stuff. It's just like over the top cheesy, but that doesn't matter. That's what the original series was all about. And it captured the magic again. And it was funny because it took Gene Roddenberry getting basically booted off this project to make that happen. But it did. They were able to really capture the magic. I thought it was great. There's, so many things in it. Like I remember there was, I think they call her Savik, and it was, Kirstie Alley plays the role of that, and they call her Mr. Savik. I remember, even though she's a girl, she's a Vulcan as well. And of course, one of the biggest scenes in it is that Spock dies. Right. And then they have to send him out in space and all this. And then, of course, I do this.
Real tearjerker.
It was great. It was great. And it wasn't even that long ago. It was, probably about 2 weeks ago. I do this all the time. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to somebody, an acquaintance, where I work. And then I made a comment and I said, well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And she's like, that is so true. I said, well, it's from Wrath of Khan. I can't take credit for it. It's like I quote Wrath of Khan in my daily life. It's so funny. But no, the movie is so good. So Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, the greatest sequel ever made, hands down. Other than, of course, Empire Strikes Back, which we said at the top.
It's Chris. It's rare that I see movies that you are really high on. I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 times. It was on Netflix for a little while.
Oh yeah, so you watched it, right?
Yeah, I have watched it. And one of the things I was actually really surprised by was how cool the space scenes looked. Like, yes, do I know that it's just like models and stuff like that? Yes, but the actual space scenes, I was super impressed with them. Like really impressed with what they were able to accomplish. So long ago with such limited resources. It was actually a really cool ass movie. Like from front to end, it was just really good movie.
And one of the best things of it is one of my favorite guys of all time, George Takei.
Oh my!
Oh my!
Yeah, there you go. So he's in it. So it's so good. And so I'm curious though. So you saw this movie. Obviously, you liked it. Did you ever see Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the original?
No, I haven't.
Well, just stay away from it because you don't want to watch it because it's stupid. Anyway, so there it is, our top 5 sequels of all time. A lot of personal favorites there, not so much of the textbook stuff that I always get accused of. So, this is what it is. I like what I like. I don't know why people sometimes think I just go textbook because I like what I like and it is what it is. Although this one, I guess maybe would be a little bit textbook. I think everybody would agree. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan is it. But anyway, time now to have some
fun with Yancy.
Okay. I'm going to have some fun with you, as always, Yancy. And obviously, we're going to stick to sequels. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to name a movie. You just name the sequel. That's it. Okay. Now, the rule is, though, if the movie has more than one sequel, I just want the first sequel. You know what I'm saying? So if I say The Godfather, I just want to hear The Godfather Part 2. Okay. I don't care about 3 or whatever. Okay. And but the hitch is, I want the complete title. Because I know you millennials, like I said, like giving these long titles to your movies, right? And all
you're gonna screw me so bad on this.
No. It's easy. I'm going to give you a movie. You give me the sequel, but I want the full title. of the sequel. Okay, that's it. We're going to start with an easy one. It's a millennial film. Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 13.
No, it's Ocean's 11. What comes after 11?
I thought that was too simple.
Ocean's 12. Jeez, I tell you. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, easy one. It's from when you were a kid. This movie came out. Home Alone. What's the sequel to Home Alone?
Home Alone. What is Home Alone 2? What is the tagline to that movie? Ugh.
Lost in New York.
Okay.
Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Okay, another easy one. I'm trying to give you some millennial ones here. Analyze This.
I've never even heard of the original.
Came out in 1999. Analyze This. You know what the sequel to Analyze This is?
Analyze That.
Yes, you are correct.
Are you serious? That was a joke.
Guess. Okay, so you guess and you get one right. Okay, guess. Here's an easy one. Raiders of the Lost Ark. What's the sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark?
The something Lost Skull or something.
Ah, jeez. Yes, we do not occupy the same space. We are not in the same studio. I want to go through the microphone and strangle you sometimes. It's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Okay.
Oh, of course.
All right, come on. Here's an easy one. One of your favorite movies of all time. You love animation so much. What's the sequel to The Lion King?
The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride.
Oh, there we go. See, I throw an easy one at you. Here's another millennial one that's super easy for you. Ready? The Bourne Identity. The Bourne Identity. What's the sequel?
I've never seen any of these. I know there's the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Ultimatum, the Bourne Supremacy, or something like that. I'm going to go with Ultimatum.
No, it's the Bourne Supremacy.
Okay.
Okay, here's one. The Silence of the Lambs. What's the sequel to The Silence of the Lambs?
I didn't know there was a sequel.
It's Hannibal from 2001. All right, 10 years later.
Was that pretty good too? Was that pretty good?
No, not really.
No,
okay. Here's an easy one. Millennial film. It's a comedy. Meet the Parents. What's the sequel to Meet the Parents?
Meet the Fockers.
Yes, very good. All right,
yes.
We're going back to Gen X now. We're going back a ways.
This is fun.
1985, Teen Wolf. What was the sequel to Teen Wolf?
I don't know.
It's Teen Wolf 2, but it's spelled T-O-O. As we always called it, me and my friends, it was Teen Wolf also. So Teen Wolf 2. Okay? You already mentioned this one, so this is easy, but I want the full title of the sequel to Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber, but I don't know what the tagline is. Oh, wait, I do. It's like bigger, larger, and uncut or something?
Yeah, that's South Park. Nice try. It's dumb. Jeez, I tell you, man, oh man, you kill me. I'm giving you stuff in your wheelhouse. It's Dumb and Dumberer When Harry Met Lloyd.
Ah, okay, yeah.
All right, here's another one. It's from the movie. This movie original came out in your favorite year of 1999, The Blair Witch Project. What's the sequel to The Blair Witch Project?
Oh, The Blair Witch Project. The Bitch is Back.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. Congratulations. No, it's Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Okay, I'm just feeding you these. Here's the most millennial film that you'll ever find: The Fast and the Furious. What's the sequel?
Chris, I watched The Fast and the Furious once, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then 17 years later, they're still making movies, and I have never seen a single one of them. Is it Tokyo Drift? Is that the second one?
Too Fast, Too Furious is the sequel.
My God, that's so cool.
Going back to Gen X now. I'm going to go back and forth here, all right? National Lampoon's Vacation. What was the sequel to National Lampoon's Vacation?
I don't know.
And the thing is, I thought you would at least maybe say Christmas Vacation. I thought maybe you might come in with that since you love that movie so much. It's European Vacation, okay? Came out in 85. All right, okay. We're going back, and I know you know this one because this is an ultimate crossover, and it's an ultimate example of where a Gen X movie is great, and you millennials go and screw it up with a sequel, okay? The Blues Brothers came out in 1980. What's the sequel to The Blues Brothers?
Oh, wow. This is going to be really bad.
It came out in the year 2000.
Oh. This is going to kill me.
It's the Blues Brothers 2000. Oh.
I did know that.
Jeez, you did not know that. You didn't know that. All right.
I didn't know that. You're right.
Again, here's a millennial film for you. Charlie's Angels. What was the sequel to Charlie's Angels?
Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
Oh, he gets one, and it's a millennial film. Good for you. Okay, here's a tough one for you. I'm going all the way back to one of my favorite years, back in 1984, and the movie is Breakin'. What's the sequel to Breakin'? I've only mentioned it 12 million times on this podcast. What's the
Breakin'?
Yeah, what's the sequel to Breakin'?
Chris, I have no idea.
Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Oh my God. One of those stupid ass movies, yes.
Oh man, stupid ass, it's Shabadoo, Boogaloo Shrimp, or whatever. And the best thing was about Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo is that they both came out the same year. The way it came out in 1984, they made sequel right away, 1984. Yeah, they didn't rush that one through. They spent their time. Okay, the last one. One of your favorite artists of all time is Prince. Purple Rain had a sequel. What was it?
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing.
It was Graffiti Bridge. They made it.
I own the album.
Oh my God, I tell you, this is the best. Would have given me
30 seconds. I could have worked through it. I could have come up with it.
Oh man, this is the best though. But 30 seconds wouldn't be resulting in like so many, wrong answer buzzers. It's so good. Oh man, that's a lot of fun. So there you go. I thought it was fun. I hope you had a good time too.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot more. Guys, listen. Whenever you guys are listening at home, I trust that there's no pressure on you guys to get it correct, right? It is increasingly difficult with each passing week. Whenever I don't perform admirably on these quizzes, this is hard.
I know it's hard. My favorite thing is getting tweets and emails from people saying I'm literally screaming at my car. When I'm listening to the podcast, they're like, I know the answer, Yancy, we know it. It's so funny. That's what makes this show so great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shift next week to a millennial film. So what I'm going to need you to do is nominate a film for me to watch, and we'll come back and we'll review it like we always do on the show. So what movie would you like to throw at me? What movie are you going to nominate for me to watch and for us to come back and to discuss?
Okay, so I'm going to have you watch a film that's a little bit newer. It's from 2015. It stars Colin Farrell, and it is called The Lobster.
The Lobster. I've never even heard of this movie.
So has literally no one else. It didn't exactly do good at the box office, but it is a very, very smart, very good, very heartfelt movie. So you like this movie. I don't like Colin Farrell. I don't think he's much, but this will be interesting. I'm going to watch this for sure. I'll come back. Like I said, I didn't even know this movie existed. So I will watch the movie. We'll come back next week. It's all good. When we'll review it together. It'll be great. I take up the challenge, my friend. I challenge you with some of these questions. I'll accept the challenge in return. It sounds good. I'll tell you what, though, until next time, and if you want to reach out to us on Twitter, should mention that because the housekeeping out of the way. You can reach me on Twitter at @CMcBrien. You can reach Yancy at Yancy Eaton. Make sure you head over to popgoesyourworld.com. All of our contact information is there. Shoot us an email. Contact us on Twitter. We'll definitely try and work it into the show if we can. That's for sure. And for Yancy Eaton, this is Chris McBrien saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thank you for listening to the Pop Goes Your World podcast. Continue the conversation on Twitter at @CMcBrien or at Yancy Eaton. Please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.